Welcome to 21st Century Faith. 21st Century Faith is a program brought to you by Aspect Ministries and features topics and guests that explore contemporary ways of reaching younger people and unchurched adults with the unchanging good news of the gospel. Now here's our speaker, the founder and director of Aspect Ministries, pastor, teacher, and author, Mike Bogart.
Hi, and welcome to 15 Minutes of Faith, sponsored by Aspect Ministries. I'm Michael Bogart, your host. Some of you turned in last week and watched the show, and we're grateful for your tuning back in. If you're new to the show, I'd like to take a few moments to explain why I believe this 15 Minutes of Faith show is so different. 15 Minutes of Faith is about how to experience effective Christian faith in our times. One of the biggest criticisms people have about Christianity these days is that it divides people. Well, it's my hope that the show will not only bring people together, people who are already followers of Jesus in all their many varieties, but also people who aren't yet. This show presents Jesus as the most amazing person who's ever lived. And more than that, we present Jesus as the Son of God. As such, he is in essence the key to life itself. It's my hope that these weekly 15 Minutes of Faith will help each of us know and represent Jesus positively in our world. You can email us at info@aspectministries.com with your questions and constructive comments. We'd love to hear from you as our audience. Well, for the next few weeks, we'll be talking about the foundation of the Christian faith, which is the Bible. To the average person, the Bible can be an incredibly confusing book. And many people may have a distorted understanding of the Bible based upon maybe incomplete information, or perhaps they've had some sort of negative experience. Other people may have picked up the Bible at some point in the past and almost immediately put it down again because of the drastic cultural differences between the ancient world and our times in the 21st century. For instance, the Bible contains stories about people who lived thousands of years ago in cultures that are vastly different in some ways from what people experience today. And some of these stories may be puzzling to contemporary people because they're just unfamiliar with the values and customs of those times. Well, I made a video recently that illustrates this issue. So here's a clip from YouTube. Watch it and we'll be back in just a minute or two. For instance, sometimes the New Testament speaks about issues that don't seem to correlate directly with issues we commonly face. For example, the need for women to keep their heads covered out of modesty, the issue of circumcising or not circumcising male children, and a number of others. In the first letter to the Corinthians, we may stop and ponder the instructions about personal conscience concerning the issue of eating meat sacrificed to pagan idols. Or we may find ourselves wondering how the extended arguments in the book of Hebrews about Jesus' superiority to anything in Judaism fits our world and the struggles we face. So, it's no surprise that some modern readers of the Bible just throw up their hands and walk away. The truth be told, a surprising number of committed believers are tempted to do something similar once in a while. Now, please don't misunderstand. What I have just described is no criticism of the Bible itself. But it does illustrate the fact that there is a cultural disconnect between things the Bible spends a lot of time talking about and the times in which we live. My aim in this video is to give some hope that the major themes of the Bible actually can be applied to life in the 21st century. In other words, I'm going to try and show you that the Bible is a book that can be understood and lived by people today. And I hope to do this by putting the main teachings and themes of the Bible in their proper perspectives, and to do it in less than an hour. I'm fully aware that what I'm attempting to do in the next few minutes is difficult and even dangerous. Inevitably, someone will think I have not covered an important teaching of the Bible the right way, or that I have distorted some important truth, or that I'm giving only one perspective on the material. And I freely admit that I will inevitably leave out a whole bunch of information, and that I may unintentionally offend some folks. So, let me restate my purpose. It's overview. It's big picture. It's a bird's eye view of the Bible. It's the Bible in 45 minutes. If we keep that in mind, we can gain some useful perspectives on this, the most famous book in history. So here goes. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little video clip about the 45-minute Bible. One of the purposes of this program is to show how the Bible can be understood and lived by people today. But also, we want to demonstrate that it still has the power to explore the deepest workings of the human condition and to radically change a person's life for the better when they put their faith in Jesus. Let's start with some very basic information about the Bible. The Christian Bible is divided into two main sections, the Old Testament, or Hebrew Scriptures, and the New Testament. The Hebrew Scriptures chronicle God's calling and work with the ancient people of Israel as His representative nation in the world. While Christians and Jews share the books of the Hebrew Scriptures, for Christians, the 27 books of the New Testament are seen as a necessary completion of what God began with Israel. These New Testament books focus on Jesus of Nazareth and the movement that formed around him. The story of Jesus is told in its first books, called the Gospels. Those would be Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The Gospel accounts are followed by instructions to Jesus' followers about how to live in a world that often doesn't take God or godly living all that seriously. The New Testament ends with the fascinating book of Revelation, which gives a glimpse of the cosmic struggle between God and the forces of darkness. Well, another important fact to keep in mind is that the Bible is an overwhelmingly Jewish document. Though there may be portions that were not written by Jewish people, a high percentage of the books were. And I think we Gentiles need to keep that in mind. The total number of authors who contributed directly to its content have been estimated at around 40. The traditional view of the Bible's authorship is that the writers range from Moses way back in the beginning, who wrote Genesis through Deuteronomy, to the Apostle John at the end, who wrote the Gospel of John, the letters of John, and the book of Revelation. Now, more skeptical scholars of the Bible question the traditional authorship of a number of the biblical books, including most famously questioning the book of Isaiah and its author as Isaiah. The earliest of the Old Testament books could have been written down about as far back as maybe 1400 BC, while the last of the New Testament books were complete sometime just before the end of the first century AD. So, from beginning to end, there's a time span of maybe 1,500 years, Genesis to Revelation. When scholars talk about the canon of Scripture, what they mean is the list of books accepted as part of the Bible. The problem with this is that there are several official canons of Scripture depending upon which group you ask. For example, Protestant Christians hold to a 66-book canon with 39 books in the Old Testament and 27 books in the New Testament. The Old Testament accepted by Protestants is identical in its overall content to the Jewish canon of Scripture, which Jews call the Hebrew Scriptures, or more correctly, the Tanakh. The Tanakh is a word developed from elements of the three divisions of Scripture that have been traditionally given among Jewish people. Torah, that's the T, Nevi'im, prophets, that's the N, and Ketubim, writings, that's the K. So T-N-K, Tanakh. On the other hand, Roman Catholics have a 73-book canon. Catholics accept as inspired Scripture all the books that the Protestants do, but they add 7 more to the Old Testament, called the Apocrypha. Eastern Orthodox Christians accept the Roman Catholic canon, plus a few more bits and pieces to make an expanded Apocrypha. Well, how did these canonical books become accepted as Scripture? Christianity accepted the Jewish Scriptures, of course, from the very beginnings of the Christian faith, and they did that for the obvious reason that Christians were all raised within Judaism. In addition, from the first century onward, the 27 New Testament books were used and regarded as Scripture by the Christian Church until they were officially endorsed at the synods of Hippo and Carthage just before the year 400 AD. And the reason for the almost 400-year lag in the official recognition of the 27 New Testament books by the Church was very simply because for the first 3 centuries of Christianity's existence, Christians were under constant pressure and at times suffered serious persecution at the hands of the Romans. Until 313 AD, when Christianity became legal within the Roman Empire, Christians had no opportunity to gather their leaders together in one place in order to discuss any issues, much less which books would go in the New Testament. The fact that the Christian church actually settled the question of the New Testament canon once they had the chance shows that they were diligent in taking care of business. More correctly, the early church did not actually see itself as deciding which book should be in the Bible, so much as simply affirming what they had always believed and practiced. And that is, the 27 New Testament books were inspired and useful as guides for faith and life. In other words, they bore the stamp of God's presence. Now, certainly there were other books that claimed to be scripture, and we can talk about those in a future session together. We'll go into some of the pseudo gospels and things like that, like the Gospel of Thomas. We won't deal with that today because of our time constraints. I want to just take a couple of minutes, though, to talk about what we can do for you in Aspect Ministries. Aspect Ministries provides this kind of non-biased, very concise overview of issues that are of interest, I think, to people all over the world, and especially in our society today. We sell all kinds of books and videos that we put together on these issues. You want to buy those? You go to aspectministries.com under the product tab, or more directly to our educational division, Mind Cuisine, MindCuisine.com. Go directly to the product tab there, and you can purchase, for example, the 45-minute Bible, which we showed a clip of earlier and which deals with these kinds of issues in more detail. You can buy videos and books on Islam, on Mormonism, on the Jehovah's Witnesses, and on the New Age movement. That's what we're here to provide for you. We're here to give you a glimpse of faith in just 15 minutes, hoping that it will lead you to more productive faith and practice as Christian, or if not, then it will lead you closer to making that kind of amazing and satisfying discovery for yourself. Until next time, this is Michael Bogart for Aspect Ministries.
Thanks so much for joining us on today's 21st Century Faith. Mike Bogart would love to hear from you. So if you have any questions or you'd like to dialogue with Mike, please feel free to use the contact information you see on the screen. And we hope you'll come back and bring a friend to the next program of 21st Century Faith.